Mason Briggs and Derek Hall were never supposed to cross paths, yet one vanished boy and one desperate criminal collided in a single morning that tore through Fairview as peace like shattered glass, leaving behind a playground in ruins, a body in the river, and a mystery no one could explain. It began as a morning so ordinary that no one in Fairview could have imagined how quickly it would turn into chaos. The sun rose gently over rows of tidy houses, spreading gold across rooftops and the small community park known as Maple Park. The air was cool, the kind of crisp breeze that carried the smell of damp grass and fresh coffee from nearby homes. Children ran toward the playground as their parents followed at an easy pace, chatting about weekend plans. Laughter echoed through the park, blending with the soft creak of swings and the occasional bark of a dog. For a while, everything felt peaceful, safe, and predictable. At 10:47 a.m., the peace was broken. From somewhere beyond the neighborhood, a strange sound began to grow, a deep, low rumble that didn't fit with the morning's calm. It came closer, building into the unmistakable roar of an engine pushed too hard. A few parents turned their heads, confused. The sound was wrong for the quiet street that bordered the park. It grew louder, sharper, and then, without warning, a black sedan shot into view. The car was moving far too fast for a residential road. Tires screeched against the pavement, and the vehicle fishtailed dangerously before straightening out. People froze. For a brief second, no one reacted. No one believed what they were seeing. Then the car crossed the curb, tore through a wooden fence, and burst into the playground. The crash was deafening. Fence posts splintered into the air like matchsticks. Parents screamed, rushing toward their children. A father dropped his coffee as he sprinted toward the swings, pulling two kids away just in time. The car missed them by inches, plowing through the grass and kicking up dirt and wood chips. A plastic slide crumpled under the impact, twisting into an unrecognizable shape. The smell of burning rubber filled the air as the driver fought for control, the sedan bouncing and jerking wildly. For a few terrifying seconds, it looked like the vehicle would crash into the sandbox where a small group of children had been playing. But just before it reached the edge, the car jolted violently, veered left, and hit another section of fence. The front bumper snapped off as it tore through, and then the sedan was gone. Back on the road, speeding away, leaving a trail of tire marks and destruction behind. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of crying. Dust hung in the air, glittering in the sunlight. A tricycle lay overturned near the slide. Someone's shoe rested in the grass beside a cracked toy car. The people of Fairview stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. A few seconds of madness had turned their safe, familiar park into a scene of wreckage and fear. When the police arrived minutes later, the driver had vanished. Officers moved quickly, blocking off the area and collecting evidence. They found part of a black bumper lodged in the fence and a shattered side mirror lying near the sandbox. The markings on the fragments suggested a recent model, possibly stolen. The details didn't make sense, but one thing was clear. This was no ordinary accident. Something darker had just raced through Fairview, and it had left behind more than broken fences. It had left behind questions no one could yet answer. Only minutes before the black sedan tore through Maple Park, another part of Fairview was already in chaos. At a small corner store on Pine Avenue, a robbery had been reported just after 10:30 a.m. The security alarm blared, sending the store clerk running into the street for help. Witnesses saw a man in a gray hoodie sprint out of the shop clutching a plastic bag, his movements fast and frantic. He jumped into a black sedan that was waiting with its engine already running. The moment the passenger door slammed shut, the car sped off, tires screeching as it disappeared down the narrow street. The store's security cameras captured only a few seconds of the incident. The robber had kept his head low, face hidden beneath his hood, but the car was clear enough to identify, a dark sedan with tinted windows and a dented left door. Police quickly issued an alert to all nearby units. Within minutes, Patrol officers spotted the same vehicle heading east toward the residential area near Maple Park. When they signaled for it to stop, the driver ignored the flashing lights and pressed harder on the gas. What followed was a high-speed chase that wound through Fairview's quiet neighborhoods, transforming calm suburban streets into a blur of sirens and panic. The pursuit grew more dangerous with every block. The suspect blew through red lights, narrowly missed an oncoming bus, and nearly clipped a cyclist trying to cross the intersection. Patrol cars followed closely, but the driver seemed to know the area well, taking back roads and sudden turns to shake them off. Witnesses described the sedan as out of control, weaving between cars like a shadow that refused to slow down. What stood out most to one officer watching from a distance wasn't just the driver's recklessness. It was the way the car seemed to hesitate at moments, jerking slightly as if there was a struggle inside. Dispatchers coordinated a plan to block off surrounding roads, but before officers could set up a perimeter, the sedan made a sharp turn toward Maple Park. That route led nowhere useful for an escape, which made the choice seem odd. It was a dead end bordered by a river and residential homes. The decision baffled police at the time, though they would later learn there was a reason behind it. Something inside the car that changed the entire direction of the chase. As the sedan disappeared from sight, the pursuing officer lost visual contact. Radio communication filled with updates and static. Then, a few minutes later, the call came through from another unit near the park. A vehicle matching the same description had crashed through the playground. The airwaves went silent for several seconds before officers confirmed what they were hearing. By the time units arrived, the driver was gone and the car had vanished again. But in the confusion, one strange detail surfaced. A witness at a nearby intersection told investigators that just before the sedan entered the park, the passenger door had briefly opened. Something, or someone, had moved inside. The image stayed in the witness's mind, a small silhouette ducking low, then disappearing from view as the car sped forward. When detectives later reviewed dashcam footage from the chase, they saw it too, a flicker of movement in the passenger seat. That single clue changed the nature of the investigation. It was no longer just a robbery or a reckless escape. Someone else had been in that car, someone who hadn't yet been identified. And as investigators would soon discover, that unknown passenger might have been the key to understanding everything that happened next. The search for the black sedan consumed the entire afternoon. Every available officer was dispatched across Fairview and neighboring towns, checking highways, side roads, and parking lots. News spread quickly, and residents began locking their doors, whispering about the mysterious car that had nearly turned a playground into a crime scene. Late that evening, as the sun began to sink behind the trees, a patrol unit found what everyone had been looking for. The sedan was abandoned behind an old warehouse near the riverbank, half hidden by weeds and rusted barrels. When investigators approached, the car looked as though it had been left in a hurry. The driver's door was slightly open, one tire was flat, and the windshield was streaked with mud. Inside, the smell of damp upholstery mixed with gasoline. A plastic bag was on the floor of the back seat, still holding crumpled bills from the convenience store robbery. It should have been a major breakthrough, but one glance inside made it clear that something didn't add up. The driver's seat was pushed back too far, suggesting someone taller had been there. The passenger seat, on the other hand, was moved forward, and a small backpack rested on the floor beneath it. When the backpack was opened, the contents stunned everyone at the scene. Inside were a school notebook, a phone charger, a few snack wrappers, and a student ID belonging to 14-year-old Mason Briggs, a local boy reported missing the night before. His photograph showed a thin, brown-haired teenager with bright eyes and a shy smile. He had vanished after leaving soccer practice on Friday evening and hadn't been seen since. Until that moment, police had treated his disappearance as a simple missing person case. Now, it appeared he had been inside the same car that caused the chaos at Maple Park. Forensics moved quickly, dusting the vehicle for prints. Two distinct sets were found, one belonging to Derek Hall, the robbery suspect, and another that matched Mason. The realization changed the investigation overnight. Questions multiplied faster than answers. Why would a missing teenager be inside a getaway car? Had he been kidnapped? Or was he running from something? In the glove compartment, detectives found one more unsettling clue. It was a folded scrap of paper with 3 words written in shaky handwriting. He said, "Run." The note's meaning was unclear, but the tone felt desperate. Some officers believed Mason had written it in fear, while others wondered if it was part of a larger plan between him and the suspect. The discovery sent shockwaves through the small town. Parents grew fearful, wondering if someone dangerous was targeting local kids. Detectives searched the warehouse and surrounding fields but found no footprints, no tire tracks, and no sign of either Derek or Mason. It was as if they had both disappeared into the air. That night, as investigators reviewed every frame of traffic camera footage, one final image stood out. Just minutes before the sedan was abandoned, a camera near the old bridge captured 2 figures walking beside the river. One appeared to be a grown man in dark clothing. The other, smaller, wore a hoodie with the hood pulled tightly around the face. They moved quickly, one behind the other, before vanishing beyond the camera's view. The footage ended there, but it confirmed what everyone feared. The driver and his passenger had left the car alive. Where they went next, no one knew. 2 days after the abandoned car was found, the search along the river intensified. Helicopters hovered low over the muddy banks while divers scoured the dark water below. The current was strong that week, carrying branches and debris downstream toward the old bridge. It was a difficult place to search, but investigators believed the key to the mystery lay somewhere beneath that shifting surface. Early in the afternoon, one of the dive teams made a discovery that confirmed their suspicions. Lodged between 2 large rocks at the bottom of the river was the black sedan, its roof crushed from impact and windows clouded with silt. When the vehicle was pulled to shore, the damage told a grim story. The front of the car had struck something hard before sinking, and the driver's door was still slightly open, suggesting someone had tried to escape before the car went under. Inside, officers found the body of Derek Hall. He was slumped against the steering wheel, seatbelt fastened, eyes closed as though he had simply fallen asleep. There were no visible injuries, no sign of a struggle, and no trace of the missing teenager. The discovery should have provided closure, but it only deepened the mystery. The autopsy revealed that Derek hadn't drowned. Instead, there were high levels of sedatives in his bloodstream, strong enough to cause unconsciousness within minutes. Investigators concluded that he had likely been drugged before the crash. It was unclear whether someone else had administered the drugs or if he had taken them himself. Either way, it meant the car had entered the river without anyone at full control of the wheel. A few meters away from where the sedan was found, searchers uncovered a second clue. Wedged in the riverbed was a waterproof duffel bag containing most of the money from the convenience store robbery. The bag had been carefully sealed with tape and plastic, as if someone had intended to hide it, not lose it. Tucked beside the cash was a small folded note, its edges warped from the water. Written in faded ink were the words, "I didn't mean to hurt him." The handwriting matched the earlier message found in the glove compartment, believed to be Mason's. This discovery shifted the focus of the case. Detectives began to suspect that the boy had not been a hostage, but an unwilling accomplice. Perhaps Derek had forced Mason to help with the robbery, promising safety or threatening harm. Something must have gone wrong during the escape, and Mason had tried to break free. The open passenger door captured in the chase footage took on new meaning. It might have been his attempt to escape before the car veered into the park. Despite days of searching, there was no sign of Mason along the riverbank. No footprints, no discarded clothing, not even a trace of him on security cameras in nearby towns. Theories spread quickly. Some believed he had drowned and been carried away by the current. Others whispered that he had survived, running deeper into the woods to hide. The only evidence of his final moments came from the river itself. The wrecked car, the duffel bag of money, and a note that hinted at regret but left everything else unanswered. Fairview, once quiet and untroubled, was now filled with unease. Parents kept their children indoors, and news crews camped outside the police station. For the first time, the town realized that the truth might not bring comfort. It might only reveal how much they still didn't understand about what really happened between Derek Hall and Mason Briggs in those last terrible moments before the car sank beneath the river. Weeks passed, and Fairview slowly began to settle back into routine, but the story of the black sedan refused to fade. The playground was repaired, the fence rebuilt, and new grass planted where the tire marks had scarred the ground. Still, people avoided the park. Parents pulled their children away when they wandered too close to the area, unable to forget the image of the car flying through what had once been a place of safety. The police continued their investigation, but progress was slow. With Derek Hall dead and Mason Briggs missing, the case seemed to have reached an unbreakable silence. Then, nearly a month after the river recovery, a maintenance worker at Maple Park noticed something strange. While clearing debris under one of the newly replaced benches, he found a small keychain shaped like a soccer ball. It was faded and slightly muddy, but when detectives examined it, they recognized it immediately. Mason S. mother had described that exact keychain during her first interview with police. It had been a gift from his older brother, something he carried everywhere. The fact that it was found back at the park where the chase had ended raised new questions. It looked deliberately placed, hidden carefully beneath the bench, rather than dropped in haste. The discovery reignited public interest. Detectives returned to the park, searching every inch for additional clues. A faint set of footprints was found near the eastern fence line, leading toward a wooded area behind the playground. They were small, consistent with Mason's size, and they had been pressed deep into the soil, suggesting someone had been moving quickly or carrying weight. The prints stopped abruptly at the edge of the woods, where the ground turned to gravel. From there, the trail vanished. Investigators revisited the evidence they had gathered. The first note, the one left in the car that read, "He said run," and the second, "I didn't mean to hurt him," seemed to tell a story when read together. Many believed Mason had been under the control of Derek Hall, manipulated or forced to assist in the robbery, but others began to wonder if the relationship had been more complicated. Perhaps Mason had agreed to help at first, then tried to back out when things went wrong. The notes hinted at guilt and fear, emotions that didn't fit the pattern of a simple victim. In the weeks that followed, unconfirmed sightings of a boy resembling Mason came from neighboring towns. One report placed him near a bus station late at night. Another claimed he had been seen at a gas station 40 miles away. None of the leads could be verified, but the possibility that he was alive kept the investigation open. Police quietly broadened the search beyond Fairview, checking shelters, train stations, and rest stops. Months later, the case files remained open but untouched, collecting dust in the evidence room. Mason Briggs had vanished as completely as if he'd never existed. Some officers believed he had drowned and the river had claimed his body. Others whispered that he had escaped, possibly carrying what remained of the stolen money. The townspeople still debated the case in hushed tones, each person forming their own version of the truth. Every year, on the anniversary of the incident, someone left a small bouquet of wildflowers by the bench where the soccer keychain was found. No one ever saw who placed them there. It became a quiet ritual, a reminder of the morning Fairview's peace was shattered and the mystery that never found an ending. Whether Mason was a victim, a survivor, or something else entirely, no one could say for certain. What remained was an unspoken unease, a feeling that the story had not really ended, only disappeared into the same silence that had swallowed the boy himself.